Hey, welcome into the Tuesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Green Ventures Landscaping. Property managers, if you manage it, they maintain it. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. We are live today from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you? What's going on?
Doing okay. Not much going on. Some more great hoops on last night. Number one, Arizona goes down for the first time this year at Kansas. Great game. I'm sure we were all watching.
Oh, yes.
I actually did watch a few minutes.
Nice.
Just
pretty good, right?
Just a few. It was good. It was good. Back and forth. That place looked like it was rocking.
Yeah. Hard to beat that place.
Well, I talked about how good Arizona was yesterday, and then they immediately lose. So I feel somewhat responsible for this.
You should. Yeah, it's your fault, Robby.
The R&R jinx.
You know, a long history of me jinxing Arizona basketball. So it's everybody knows I hate Arizona. So got to get after them a little bit.
Probably good for them to get an L.
Just get it out of the way. You know,
yeah, because you don't want that pressure.
No,
it's still Arizona and Michigan would still be the dream national title game right now at this point. To me, it's those two.
Yeah.
And then everybody else.
Ian, how we doing? What's going on?
Oh, just fine. Thanks. I was thinking about this on the way in. We're getting to the tricky portion of the weather for us morning folks where it's chilly, but then you look at the phone and you're like, oh, 70 today. But then you go outside and you're like, oh, maybe I should have worn a bigger coat. So, doing great. Pretty relaxing night last night. Watched a little bit of hoops, but doing good. Thanks.
Good.
Yeah. To that point, it was awesome yesterday. And then it was not even late. Like, I don't know, maybe 8:00 or something, walked the dogs. And didn't have a jacket or anything and it was like, what the? I mean, it was like 49. It had gone from my thing said 71, so it went from 71 to 49 in 2.5 hours. So that is one thing to keep in mind.
You know what? I'll take the rest of this week in February every time, baby. 72 today, 52 tomorrow where I am. They're in the 50s all week. We just dealt with all that ice. I'm cool with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Just cool with it. If he wants to get down in the 30s at night, sign me up. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. No real complaints. And then hopefully, I'm not even going to speak into existence the possibility of. Didn't you say some website says we're going to get another one or something?
Yeah, it did. But I mean, we're approaching the date of that. And I think the day they had for it, the current temperature is reading 59 degrees. I think we're going to be all right.
Okay. All right.
That commuter bottle was wrong. That's why you can't trust these these weather computer models predicting stuff 3 or 4 weeks out. It's like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense. I mean, other than some huge, sometimes you have like a developing system or something, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, you can get stuff wrong in 2 days. So
yeah. We got a lot going on the program today. Nick Baumgartner will be with us at 7:00. We will get into the Titans. We'll get into a little bit of the NFL draft with him. A lot of things coming up with Nick Baumgartner a little bit later in the show. We'll have the Rob rant at 7:45. Take your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, looked like a fun time. It's Super Bowl in San Francisco, or I guess more accurately, the Bay Area this weekend. And we know that the next 2 dates for the Super Bowl are set. They'll be in SoFi Stadium in California, out there in LA in 2027. And in 2028, they're going back to Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So those next 2 dates are set for the Super Bowl in the National Football League. And then the question becomes after that, Joe, I mean, we're not that far away in our city of having Nissan Stadium, the new Nissan Stadium completed. And with that, the expectation is that a Super Bowl is coming along with it at some point. And, Jim Wyatt put something together on TennesseeTitans.com kind of highlighting all of this. And Burke Nihill and some other members of the Titans were out in San Francisco this weekend, kind of just looking at how things were run and going over those things. And it's a typical trip that they make. But, some comments in this piece by Wyatt, Joe, dating back to when Roger Goodell was here for the ceremony with the new stadium. And one of the things he was talking about during there was, look, the 2019 draft, we all know that. We've talked about that. It was a wake-up call basically for the NFL. And the only thing missing for the Super Bowl was the stage. Well, the stage is about to be done here in Nashville with a new stadium coming up. So the question is, when's this going to happen? Like, how quickly into the existence of the new stadium is a Super Bowl going to be here in our city? Burke Nihill of the Titans is quoted in this piece and says, quote, "When you look at past stadium rhythms in terms of when a stadium opens and when the NFL feels comfortable bringing their biggest event to a new stadium, for us, that's probably in the early 2030s. It was what Burke Nihill said on the matter. So probably a more realistic date of when to potentially expect that. What do you think of all this, Joe? Like the Super Bowl, I mean, they're going back to Atlanta here in 2028. They're going back to SoFi Stadium here in 2027. So those stadiums are kind of being put in a little bit of a rotation here. What do you make of Nashville and where this could all go from here once the new stadium is completed, having just watched the Super Bowl out there in the Bay Area for the second time?
Yeah, well, so what are the new ones that we've had, and how I've thought that the awful New Jersey stadium got a Super Bowl like almost right away, and you talk about weather.
Yeah.
That one, you could almost talk me into, the government being able to affect the weather with that one. It was pretty mild. That would have been, let's see, what year was that? That would have been, that's MetLife. So yeah, 2014. I mean, when the heck did MetLife open? So, okay. So yeah, it opened in 2010. So there you go. So 2010. So then the 2013 season. So the fourth season of its existence, you had a Super Bowl there. Now we know that U.S. Bank Stadium, and again, like this is one of those where it's a dome. You built the new stadium, you're going to get a Super Bowl. Okay, so U.S. Bank Stadium gets it in 2018. It was open in 2016. So there's an example of a stadium. So gosh, that's second year.
Yeah,
that's year 2. And you get it, which is possible, but yeah, reading that story with Burke Nihill quoted from Jimmy Wyatt's story, it sounds like it might be a little bit more like 3-4 years into it than the other way around. Lucas Oil got one also in Indy. And so that was, let's see, Lucas Oil opened in 08, I guess. Is that right? Yeah. Open in 08, got the 12 Super Bowl. So 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. So year 4. So it's going to be in that sweet spot, and yeah. So then we're talking, what would that be then? 7, 8, 9, the 30 season, maybe the 30 season, maybe 31 Super Bowl, or maybe the 29 season, the 30s, because there's only, we only have 2 that we know of.
That is correct. Yeah. 2 more that we know of, 27 and 28.
2 more that we know of. So, yeah. So you could, in theory, be as early as
29.
Yeah, the 28 season, 29. But again, that's only year 2 of your existence. That has happened. There is a precedent for that. But it's going to be, it's probably the year after the year or the year after that, And it's going to look, Atlanta having Super Bowls, for example. I mean, Atlanta's fine. I like Atlanta, but like the whole area on the stadium, I mean, like compare that to what we have here. There's no comparison.
Right.
There's no comparison whatsoever. And I think like a lot of people, this story talks about the Titans people, but also Goodell and everything. The draft was, I mean, I think there was a lot of talk around then too, but like it was absolutely okay, this place is going to get a Super Bowl. It's just, it was always just the question of the new stadium. So that's happening. And then, of course, as we've talked about before, there's other stuff that will come too, for sure. I mean, I expect the Final Four to be here. We've kind of outgrown NCAA regionals a little bit. Haven't had a lot of that. I think it's been several years, but I mean, the Final Four, I think, is also a lock.
One texter says, I wonder if they'll want everything around it to be built first, talking about that district that's going on over there by the stadium too. It's a good thought, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when everything over there will be completed, but I assume a lot of it will be by the time the stadium opens up. Maybe not all of it, but I think a lot of it probably will be.
Yeah, by then, I would think so, right? I would think certainly, and that's the thing too. It's like whatever timelines are, once you set this, then that might change some timelines too, right?
Devin from Dover points out, when they get the new stadium done, then they're eventually going to have to tear the old stadium down and build parking around it. So that'll take some time for sure. So my guess is, if I had to guess, and this is, I don't know anything, obviously, it's me just totally spitballing. My guess is 2031, 2032, somewhere in that neighborhood would be where I'd guess it goes.
See, that'd be disappointing to me. That would be year 5. So far with the what we've seen here is year 4 is the latest. I would hope it'd be 30.
Well, I'm
31.
saying Super Bowl of 20, so I guess 30 season.
30
Super Bowl,
okay.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the sweet spot. And then obviously you get into, can Nashville be? Because let's see, if you look at the cities that have had, obviously we know New Orleans.
Yeah.
Actually, can you name me the city / metro area of a city that has had the most Super Bowls?
I'm going to guess Miami.
Miami has had 11 between Hard Rock Stadium and the Orange Bowl. However, New Orleans also has had 11, 8 at the Superdome and 3 at Old Tulane Stadium. So those are those are the 2 that have been dominant. You also have the Rose Bowl has had 5 of them, but you haven't had one at the Rose Bowl since 93. And, that's kind of, I mean, I loved the Super Bowl at the Rose Bowl, but that's sort of a relic of the past. Obviously California is still going to get, like, if you count LA, 5 at the Rose Bowl, you've had 2 at the Coliseum. So that's 7 in SoCal.
And they've had 1 at SoFi so far, I think.
I guess that's right. They've had 1 at SoFi too, haven't they? So they've had, so California has had 8. So, that all makes sense. I think that Nashville should and can be there. I don't know that it will, but I think there's a real chance that we're talking rotational here.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're off and running on Robby and Rexrode. What do you make of the idea of Nashville being a regular rotation in the Super Bowl? We'll get your thoughts on that. More discussion on that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Throwing it out there, could Nashville get in the rotation for a Super Bowl regularly? Taking your thoughts on that, 615-737-1025. Joe, as you just mentioned, Miami obviously been in the rotation. New Orleans has been in the rotation. My guess is SoFi probably going to get in the rotation here. They got Super Bowl number 2,
Yes.
SoFi Stadium coming up here next season. What is it going to take in your mind for Nashville to join that club, and what could prohibit Nashville from that in your mind?
Las Vegas will get in the rotation too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like so we totally expect that. And it should. That's I think SoFi, but look,
Buffalo's new stadium will not.
Right, like now that'll be interesting. Like, do they get one?
I don't know, man. If you ran the Super Bowl in Buffalo, can you imagine? It's like, wow, it's minus 11 out here.
I mean,
that's pretty risky.
It is.
They got lucky with MetLife. I don't know if you can get lucky with Buffalo in February, though.
Yeah, the lake effect in Buffalo is a totally different deal, man.
And it
totally
could be,
different deal.
And it's no joke, right? Like,
don't worry,
it could be bad.
Snowing,
and if it's bad,
get the whole community out there and start shoveling. That'd be fine.
Look, if you put it to a vote of all NFL fans, I would vote for it one time.
I would too. Yeah.
One time. Let's do it. I mean, if we're okay, I am. And some people cried, about the snowy game in Denver. I'm fine with it. But if you're okay with it in the conference championship game, why not in the Super Bowl?
Let's put it in Lambeau. Let's go.
Yeah, man. I mean,
there's not a hotel around, but other than that,
everybody's staying in Appleton. Yeah. So SoFi, and the thing about SoFi is, I mean, obviously, it's California, but it's not like that stadium is. It's in Inglewood. It's isolated. Like there's no. I mean, obviously Vegas, everything. It's pretty close walk to the Strip and all that stuff. So that makes sense to have it there. New Orleans, it's walkable to all the stuff, right? I mean, very makes sense. I mean, Atlanta's fine. But again, I would put what we have, and again, you say what we have, we already know what you have on the other side of the river, but then by the time you get to this, you're also going to have all the stuff over there. So I would put that up in terms of like surrounding area walkable stuff up with anyone. I mean, I think the one question is our weather. Right? Because I mean, like right now it's fine. This would be great. This is the time of year it would happen, and it's great. But it wasn't that long ago, that obviously we got crushed with the ice storm. So it's just a question of like, is there a worry that it's just a little bit too risky, that we're a little bit too north? Obviously, it's not going to affect the game itself, but just a little bit too north to make it a regular thing. Indy is also a great place in terms of it's all downtown. You can walk from Lucas Oil to anything you want to downtown. They've had one Super Bowl, and they just haven't really. Now, Indy is like gets the Final Four like seriously every like third year. I mean, third or fourth. They should. It's where if you had a permanent place for the Final Four, everybody would vote for Indy. It just works. So why is that? I mean, obviously we're talking about two different organizations, but I think some of it is that the Final Four is in early April, and you can count on it being good for fans to walk around. And early February, you can't there. Now we're 4.5 hours south of that. Does that make the difference?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, like you said, it has nothing to do with the game, but there's all sorts of stuff around the Super Bowl that goes on that's beyond just the game. So, I mean, look, there's a gigantic convention center that we've got here. There's a new hotel going up every day. So those things that used to be a concern, I don't think are anymore. I think we got a lot of hotels. I think we got a lot of convention center room. So like that space, and in Super Bowls past, they've used the basketball/hockey arena for some stuff when they've had to as well. And that's right there too. So there's a lot of things that are in place infrastructure wise that I think would be good. The rotation part of it's going to be interesting because I guess my question is, well, how big's the rotation, right? Like how deep are you going into your rotation? Because they're not taking Miami or New Orleans out of it. We know that LA's in it. We know that Vegas is going to be in it. So, like, are you going to have a rotation that's like 8 deep at some point? Or like, what's the rotation going to ultimately end up looking like with all these people building new stadiums?
Yeah. And that's another thing, too, is it just like in LA, Hard Rock Stadium there's really nothing around it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not a non-starter. Like, I don't expect it. I expect both of those places to get it. But again, to me, like, the ideal situation is a New Orleans or what we have in terms of everything. Music City Center, that's Radio Row and all this stuff. I mean, it's really, the convenience factor is super high. So so LA, New Orleans, Miami, Vegas, Nashville. There's 5, and then you throw in this. This team built a new stadium here. They get 1. And then you're talking every 5 years. I mean, even the Superdome. I'm kind of stunned by this, but the Superdome went from, they had it in 25. Before that, they hadn't had one since 13.
Yeah.
And before that, since 02. So you're talking 11 and then 12-year gaps for them. Hard Rock Stadium last had it in 20, and before that, last had it in 10. So, like, rotation could still mean like close to a decade, I guess.
Sure. Well, like Tampa Bay had it in 2003, and they didn't have it again until 2021. That's a long time.
Oh, I guess I'm looking at something that had them having it in 09. But either way, that's a long. Yeah, either way, that's a long time. And of course, Tampa, by the way, has had.
Okay, so you're right. AI lied to me. Yep, you're good.
But Tampa has had 5 total. The stadium before Raymond James, they had 2 there. But yeah, you could make a case for Tampa too, I suppose, right? Like,
weather's normally good.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing,
Although they did just have an outdoor hockey game there a week and a half ago where it was like 38 degrees. That probably won't happen again, but it did happen.
Again, the government helping sports with the weather.
I guess so.
Maybe they can get in there and help the NCAA, but the NCAA finally won a court case. We'll get to that later. So I guess that's the thing. So are we counting Tampa and Miami? Now you're getting into a bigger rotation. Now that's 6, I guess. It's interesting. Like, Houston has had a couple at NRG, 04 and 17.
Yeah.
So do they get every once in a while? And again, Levi's Stadium just had one. Before that, they had one 10 years earlier. So do we count them? Now you're getting in a rotation. Now you're talking about, basically everybody gets one a decade.
Yeah, it's like third of a league. So how deep does that go? But how many new stadiums are going to be built in the meantime too?
That's true. And if the league has its way, anything that's 20 years old or more, get it out of there. But I just think that any sort of rotation, and again, some of this has to do with when we get the Super Bowl. How does it go? How does everything work, and what's the experience like? But I mean, look, based on the draft, like I would expect that people will be like, yes, please do this more. Do it here. If it's not randomly one of those really, cold weeks that we just get here and there in the winter.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. A takeaway from the Super Bowl that we discussed yesterday on the show that is becoming a very popular talking point around the league. We will get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe, we had a conversation yesterday about the general manager, particularly the general manager of the last two teams that have won the Super Bowl. We know Howie Roseman with Philadelphia, very aggressive. Titans have been witnesses to that firsthand over the years. But a very aggressive general manager, not afraid to make big moves, not afraid to leverage draft capital when the time comes. And John Schneider, the Seahawks, pretty similar. And this, Mike Sando put together a really good piece at The Athletic here, kind of highlighting this. And I'll just read kind of the lead of the story here, Joe, that I think sums it up pretty well, the first two graphs. Great quarterbacks have ruled the NFL for decades. But increasingly, even they are living in a league driven by the active, opportunistic general manager. That was John Schneider beaming on the stage at Levi's Stadium as his Seahawks, led by the coach he hired 2 years ago, celebrated the dominating Super Bowl victory over the Patriots. So there's some really good stuff here in this piece, Joe, about Sando and how he built the team, and he used, obviously, the trade stuff that we talked about yesterday, the draft picks that have been highly successful, the Russell Wilson trade from a few years ago that, frankly, like the Seahawks and the Broncos both have rebounded from pretty well here, which is kind of incredible when you think about just how much was involved in that trade. But the Seahawks, we were talking about this off the air, Joe, like in my lifetime, going back over the last 20 some odd years in the NFL, they've made the Super Bowl with Hasselbeck. They made 2 and won 1 with Russell Wilson. And now they've won another one here with Sam Darnold as the quarterback. Like, it's quietly over the last 20, 25 years, they've been a really darn good franchise. Like, they have been very, very good. And obviously John Schneider and Pete Carroll, there was a run of success that they had. And now Schneider's at it again with the way that they've built this team. And we'll see, what this looks like moving forward for them in terms of their roster and who they can keep and all that stuff. But the point that Sando makes is, like, the general manager in the National Football League now, we're seeing some examples of a couple guys in Schneider and Roseman who have been unbelievably aggressive in how they've approached their job, and it's worked out pretty well for them the last couple of years winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Again, the 3 straight years in season, Leonard Williams, Ernest Jones, Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah.
So it's, again, are there examples of GMs going for it, making trades that don't work out? Sure. So, you got to make the right choices in the draft, in free agency. But I do think that there are some GMs who, I think it's just an old mindset of, I'm not messing with my draft capital. And, like Les Snead famously, and it's not in season, but Les Snead, of course, famously, right?
Yeah.
Fart those picks, and they won one. And by the way,
they've rebounded well since.
Yeah. And by the way, it's like, okay, I guess we'll draft some guys. They're awesome. And so here they are back again with some of the guys that they got when they gave up draft picks. You just have to have that feel for when to go for it. And again, then it's more than anything, it's the choices. But again, I do think that there are some GMs who are just a little bit too hesitant to get into that. And it's hard to argue with the success. And it's hard to argue that if you did everything else that John Schneider did, but you didn't do the in-season stuff, would you be here? I would say no.
Well, and like the Titans are in a different spot, obviously, right now. But as they continue to build their roster, and you got over $100 million in cap space, you got a top 4 pick, you got a quarterback you've already drafted. As time goes on here over the next couple of years, what does the philosophy look like from Mike Borgonzi? Because look, I mean, he would have been an idiot this past season to be aggressive, right? Like, everybody knew what the situation was. But as they build their roster and they become a team, hopefully, that's more competitive, and they get into the conversation in the AFC South and all those things, like, what does the approach from Borgonzi look like? I mean, Sando says this, and there's some Hall of Fame general managers that are kind of laid out in the story here. And he's talking about, plenty of good general managers don't push the limits like Howie Roseman and John Schneider, but the upside just isn't the same. And then he points out Schneider is the only GM to win 2 Super Bowls with a different coach and no carryover of players. And he is an executive in the comments. It says the fact that Schneider built 2 Super Bowl teams that were totally different, he ought to go to the top of that list and be in the Hall of Fame. Like it's incredible.
Yeah, that is awfully impressive. That's a hell of a stat. And with both, also in this piece, with both those guys, with Roseman and with Schneider, you had a tough quarterback decision that you had to make, and both of them made it, and both are right. Schneider, okay, Russell, remember it was just like, oh my God, the Broncos are going to be amazing, and of course now then they had Geno, but now then you do this, and it works out great with Darnold, and of course trading Carson Wentz to Indy, that was there was a lot of people wondering what the heck he was doing at the time, or certainly like questioning, like, is Jalen Hurts going to be able to do this? And obviously he's won 1, been to 2, and played awesome in both of them.
Yeah. And, look, Howie Roseman has made moves too that haven't worked out. They've had some draft picks that haven't worked out. Andre Dillard did not work out very well for them. So, like, it's not like Howie Roseman has been like every move he's ever made has been perfect, or that John Schneider, every move they've ever made has been perfect. But if you go through the list here, most of them have worked out pretty well. And we'll see on Mike Borgonzi. Like, I am encouraged by the early returns. I'm not in love with the early returns, and I understand they just went 3-14. But you're talking, Cam Ward, we'll see. Some good picks, it looks like, in the 4th round. And I think we're going to find out a lot about Borgonzi this offseason, because not only do you have the number 4 pick coming up in the draft, but you just have a ton of free agency money available to you. So what do you do with it? And, like, how do you allocate that money, right? Do you make the right decisions with the money that you spend for the most part? It's not going to be perfect, but do you, in totality, when we're having this conversation next year, whenever the Titan season ends, and we're looking back at the free agent crop that they're about to go get in the draft picks that they're about to make, do you have way more hits than you do misses? And if you do, I think you're feeling pretty good about where you're going here. And again, can you get yourself as an organization into a situation here over the next few years where you're seeing Mike Borgonzi maybe shift philosophy a little bit and become one of these guys that gets pretty aggressive? You don't have to be reckless. Like, Cleveland has had plenty of of aggressive decision makers / general managers / owners that makes pretty reckless decisions. Jets the same way. So it's not just making moves for the sake of making moves. The thing that stands out to me the most about Roseman and Schneider is they are really good at identifying players. That's whether it's free agency, draft, whatever it is, they're obviously excellent at picking the right players.
Yeah, exactly. And again, doing it enough, especially like in Roseman's case, I think that you can get past your mistakes and sometimes trade your mistakes away to the Tennessee Titans.
There's that.
So, yeah, I agree, though, with Borgonzi. Like, this year, we'll have a much better – I would say first year drift positive. Of course, the quarterback is going to end up being such a large percentage of the whole evaluation, but positive, but not like, oh, my God, positive. But, yeah, this year, you've got to plug a lot of holes. And you're going to plug a lot of holes, and then the question is, like, how well do you do so? And if it looks good, then I think you got to have some serious optimism. And then how long does it take before you're get to the point of being aggressive? I mean, I have no idea. Look at the New England Patriots just went to the Super Bowl after they won how many games last year?
4.
Yeah, won 4 games last year. So these things do happen in the NFL, but. Yeah, look, these things happen in the NFL, and for them, a big part of it was a quarterback who made a huge jump from year 1 to year 2 with a new OC. So there are some parallels.
Except now after the Super Bowl, people think he can't tie his shoes. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So what I've seen some people being like, you guys are being way too mean on social media. I'm like, well, what do you? I mean. who's surprised by this?
Yeah.
And this is what happens now.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic will be with us at 7 o'clock. We will get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. Looking forward to that. Coming up next, one of the best things in all of sports is right around the corner, and I'm sensing some buzz from people. We'll get your thoughts on that as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Tonight, number 19, Vanderbilt men's basketball taking on Auburn with a 6 o'clock tip-off. Pregame show starting at 5:30 on 1025 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll have Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic coming up here in just a few minutes at 7 o'clock. And, Joe, we are right on the doorstep of one of my favorite things in all of sports that we've not seen in 12 years, and that is Olympic hockey with NHL players participating. We are just a day away from the action starting, and you look at it, no surprise, Joe. Team Canada is the favorite to win the gold medal at plus 130 on FanDuel Sportsbook. USA right behind them at plus 190, and then Sweden and Finland closing out. Now, obviously, Team Russia is not playing, and we've talked about that, Joe, with the team that they got, and particularly the goaltending that they got. Would have been very interesting to see them in the tournament. But I cannot wait for this tournament to get started. I am so excited about best on best hockey. You know, the Four Nations tournament last year, which was happening about a year ago to the day right now, ended up being awesome, right? And there was that awesome, round robin game between the U.S. and Canada, and then the gold medal game or the championship game between U.S. and Canada was awesome too. And McDavid won it in overtime. I am very much hoping that we get a gold medal game between USA and Canada. I think it would be awesome. Either way, I'm very much looking forward to this tournament and glad that NHL players are back playing some Olympic hockey.
Yes. Thank goodness. It's been way too long. It's hard to it's just so different. It actually kind of makes me mad all over again that 8 years ago I was in Pyeongchang and my most exciting thing to write was about Ellie Tolvanen.
Yeah.
Although the women's gold medal game was incredible, but I mean it's so different. And I think, I'm actually looking at our little staff vote of predictions. We got 68% Canada and 28% United States. So, that's a pretty good chunk. And Sweden gets 3.6%, by the way. Let's not forget Sweden.
There you go.
No Carlson. But Sweden, is good too. But no, I'm with you. I mean, that's the one, unless you're from one of those other countries, that's the game that everybody wants to see. And I mean, it's just when you think about, again, the combination, having like McKinnon, McDavid, Crosby, and all these guys, and then obviously, I mean, Eichel and Boldy, and we got Quinn. It's just a ridiculous collection of talent out there.
Yeah. Well, USA, the USA's decor is amazing. Like they've got Quinn Hughes playing with Charlie McAvoy. This was from practice yesterday. Jake Slavin, Brock Faber, Jake Sanderson, Zach Werenski. That's their top six. That's ridiculous. Like all those guys are like number one defensemen. Like it's crazy how good they are. So you got Hellebuck in net. There's Ottinger that you could throw in there too. So you're feeling good about that. The forward group, definitely the forward group for the U.S. is not as talented as Canada. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean,
right.
Look, they've got Matthews and Eichel and the Kachuk brothers, but it's not like they're not talented. But it is hilarious when you look at Canada's lines right now. I think they had Crosby between Stone and Marner. They had McDavid playing with Celebrini and Tom Wilson.
Sure.
And Nathan McKinnon with Marchand and Reinhart. So
that's fair.
You go center depth. You stack your three if you go that way. You go McDavid, Crosby, and McKinnon. Those are your three centermen there. That's pretty good.
And then if you're, chasing a game late, you put those guys all out there together, Yeah, no, it's crazy, man. It's pretty awesome. So I'm just now, okay, so the first U.S. looks like it'll be Latvia 2 o'clock our time. Latvia, yes. 2 o'clock our time, Thursday, huh?
Gotta wait a day.
You got, yeah.
Yep.
Gotta wait a day, but then you got Denmark on Saturday, you got Germany on Sunday, then you get through the pool play, and then it really gets juicy.
Oh, yeah. Now, I obviously we know, there are hockey fans around here that I think are really excited about this. And look, you got 4 members of the Predators in the Olympics too, right? So that's always fun. Like Yossi playing with Switzerland. You got Haula and Saros for Finland and Forsberg for Sweden. So it's going to be fun to see how those guys do. But, Joe, I think the thing that kind of stood out last year that I'm interested to see if it happens again this year on a bigger stage. Like the Four Nations tournament was probably the most successful thing the NHL has drummed up together in like as long as I can remember. And I remember when they talked about it, I was like, is that going to work with the Olympics coming the next year? And boy, did it work. Like people were all in. I mean, for those couple of days, in the aftermath, especially, Joe, of the U.S. Canada, the pool play game leading up to when they played again, like it was the number one story in sports. Like people were all into it. It was all over ESPN and all that stuff. So, I don't expect the general public to be all that excited for USA and Latvia, but as it gets deeper into the pool and, if things go the way we think it's going to go, and, by the time the semifinals coming around, you're looking at, US, Canada, Sweden, and Finland, right? Like, how much does this kind of take over American sports with USA hockey if they can make another run?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it has a huge impact. And it's also when you think, oh, God, I mean, I still remember, some of the guys, I don't remember what year it was, but it was like we were coming up on talking about, I guess it would have been leading into maybe the 18 one, but you listen, even I remember what David Poyle said at the time, and he was just like other GM, and I understand GMs, right? GMs are nervous as hell during this time, of course, right? I mean,
and by the way, somebody's going to get hurt during this. Like it's going to happen.
It will, and so while I understand that, like you just said, look at what Four Nations was and how people embrace that and how they've totally botched this by not letting this happen for so long. It's just a terrible overall business decision and lack of vision by the league to me. But thankfully, we're in a different era now.
If you want to grow the game, and if this tournament ends up being as good as I think it will be, this is the way to do it. This will grow it more than anything else. This will grow it more than the Stanley Cup final. This will grow it more than your regular NHL stuff. Hey, look, I said it last week. I think the NHL is in a great spot right now. The quality of hockey that's out there right now is great. Like it's, last couple of years, the NHL is in the best spot it's ever been in my lifetime. However, if you're trying to grow the game and get new fans, this is how you do it. And particularly if USA hockey is as good as I think they can be here, there will be a lot of new fans that come out of watching them play, which ultimately will affect your bottom line down the road if you're the NHL, which is good.
Exactly. Because it is I think you see this. I mean, I think you see it in basketball. I think you see it in baseball, but so football too. But football, just everything works for them. But just people attaching themselves to players, to stars. I mean, that's something that comes out of this too. You have fans of people who are playing on this team, not just like fans of like the team that you live near.
Right.
It's so way more just knowledge of the league, of the top players, and like you said, it's just a huge deal, and it's hard to even quantify what it means. And a little bit different, but you think about like the dream team, 30 years ago, going to Europe and everything, and like look at the impact on basketball worldwide. I mean, look at the impact on like the labor force in the NBA and some of the incredible players coming from Europe, and that's not quite the same thing. But again, there's just a huge impact for the Olympics.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Nick Baumgardner from The Athletic will join us coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. Robby and Rexrode presented by Green Ventures Landscaping. For homes and businesses that want to stand out, not blend in, visit greenventureslandscaping.com. Let's head to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Nick Bumgardner from The Athletic to the program. Nick, good morning. How are you?
Good, guys. How are you?
Doing awesome, man.
Good.
Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So, Nick, in the aftermath of the Super Bowl, Titans fans are salivating because they saw how dominant Seattle's defense was, and they said, you know what? Let's just load up on some edge rushers here, of which the Titans don't have very many at the moment. So, as you're looking ahead to this draft coming up, particularly at the top of the draft with the Titans picking at number 4, what do you make of the options that are going to be available then? Potentially, Arvell Reese, but Ruben Bain, a lot of Titans fans are curious about. David Bailey, a lot of Titans fans are curious about. What do you make of maybe those two guys specifically?
Yeah, Reese is the one where I guess it'll be the most interesting to see where he goes because he and it's either him or Caleb Downs for me, probably the safety there at Ohio State as the top prospect in the draft. But I would assume the Raiders are going to go with a quarterback there, and I don't know what will happen at 2 and 3. Both those teams obviously need quarterbacks too. I doubt that I would take a quarterback that high, but we'll see how it goes. So if he slides, I mean that's possibly a complete game changer for Tennessee down there if he could fall, as he is the closest, probably the closest comp we've seen to Micah Parsons since Micah Parsons. I mean he's got all of the same traits. He can do different stuff all over the place, and he's just scratching the surface on what he can be. Beyond that, if he doesn't slide, Ruben Bain or a David Bailey would be probably the next two that I would look at. Bain is the one that I give him to when we did a 3-round mock on The Athletic earlier this week. And he's the one that I go back and forth on, honestly. Like, there are days where I feel like Ruben Bain is a absolute lock, top 3 pick. When you watch the end of the season, how he played through the playoffs with the physicality he brings, he can play inside, outside. He's pretty relentless when he's on and engaged, but there's also been stretches on his tape where he's not. He also has pretty short arms. Some teams look at him more of a 3-tech than an edge. But it's going to be all about scouting and getting to know him and all that stuff too. So interesting options. Bailey is more of a pass rush specialist, whereas Bain would be probably a 3-down weapon if he turns out to be the guy you think he can be. So certainly good options though for Tennessee. They've got a lot of interesting ones there, and who knows, maybe that's even a trade spot if things work out the right way.
So Nick, you and Scott, Dr. Man also had a mock not long ago. And in that one, you had the Titans going with Tate, Carnell Tate, wide receiver, Ohio State. Maybe I'm biased because I watch Ohio State games and I watch like the other receiver on the field for them, and I'm like, he's not as good as that dude. But like, is Carnell Tate in your mind? Is he a receiver who's good enough to be a top 5 pick?
Yes, I mean it's a weird conversation. It's hard to explain sometimes because you're 100% right, Joe. Like, Jeremiah Smith is incredible. He's the most talented football player in the country as a sophomore. He might have been as a freshman. I mean, like, he's going to be, maybe the highest receiver. I guess Hunter went so high last year or whatever it was, but he'll be in that era next year when he comes out. But the hard part there is, you can't really compare him to Tate necessarily, I don't think, because like Tate is also an outstanding and my elite receiver. I mean, when you look at everything he did this year, opposite Jeremiah Smith. Smith is, he gets all of his touches. He had 85 catches, whatever it was, for over 1,000. Tate still made big plays consistently. I think he had 1,000 yards when it was over. He got better at everything. And when you just look at him on his own and don't compare, he's a 6'3" guy who's big, physical. He can run like a small guy. He can bend and do all those things. He blocks. He's just a classic Ohio State receiver. Anybody who knows the Big Ten and follows that over the last 10 years, whatever it's been. We just saw Jackson Smith and Jigba there in the Super Bowl and all those guys. It's the guys that are detailed and everything that they do wind up at Ohio State, and Tate's, to me, he's another example of that. So I mean, it's kind of your flavor. You could have Tate. There's also Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. Mekhi Lemon from USC is another one that people are into. So for me, Tate is barely receiver 1 in this class, but I think him and Tyson are both guys that would be intriguing up there and possible top 5 picks.
Well, you mentioned the quarterback part of this. It's really interesting heading into the year because I think everybody expects Mendoza to go at number 1. And I think most people expect Ty Simpson to be the second quarterback taken. But then the question is, well, where's that going to be? Like, is that going to be higher in the first round? Is he going to slide all the way down, maybe into the 20s? What's that going to look like with Ty Simpson? And, it's weird, Nick, because like every year we start talking about that and then somebody like inevitably reaches on a quarterback at some point, it seems like. So how do you view the Ty Simpson part of this?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's to me, it's like a cross between the situation we saw with, they're not the same player, but the situation we saw with Anthony Richardson and the situation we saw with Jackson Dart. Like, I feel like he should be more like a Jackson Dart was looked at last year by teams, where the quarterback needy teams in the top 10, you don't do it. You don't need to do that in the top 10. If he's there in the 20s, you want to make a trade up like the Giants did and go get him, do that. I think that would be how I would look at Ty Simpson. But, the thing of it is when you look at some of these teams up there, like if the Cardinals decide they want to make a change, or if the Jets decide they can't go another day without a quarterback, and they convince themselves, like the Colts did with Anthony that year, that, hey, we're just going to do it. We're just going to take him up here. That just becomes kind of a blind dice roll, because the problem with Ty Simpson is everything that we see from him that is really intriguing and good has only been in 1 year. And it was only kind of in like half of a year. He had, I would say, like 70% of last year was very, very good. And then the other 30% was really not good. And the 30% that wasn't good was down the stretch when it was really important. So, I don't know if he's totally ready yet. In a perfect world, to me, he goes down there to like Pittsburgh or something, gets to sit the year, and then next year you see what you got. Like, I mean, that's, I think, what Ty Simpson is right now. I think he's definitely a talented player who could be a really good starter, but if I'm a team up there in the top 3, it's going to be really hard for me to pull the trigger.
So sticking at quarterback, Nick, Trinidad Chambliss is still, he's still got hung up in the courts and possibly trying to, and the NCAA won one yesterday. How about that? Good job, NCAA. But trying to, get another year at Ole Miss. But you guys, or believe he's QB3 and maybe even a guy who could push. I mean, I think you had him going high second in the mock you and Scott did. Is he a guy who, even like, again, with the some seemingly inevitable QB reaches going on, all of a sudden find himself in the first round and be happy that he didn't win his court case?
Yeah, like he's the most interesting one to me in that whole group, because like you said, Joe, like I really like him. I thought he reminds me a lot of Cam Ward, actually, in like the improvement track that we saw. Like, he just gets better every single time he plays. And especially in college, it was like the big games down the stretch, he was better. He didn't shrink. He just seemed to get better as time went on. And I could understand why he, went after the NCAA and wanted to get more money there, or another grab. Because I think he would have, if he could have came back and played one more year, number one, he would have been able to, get paid a fortune. I think somebody would have paid him more than he would have made, if he signed a second round contract, whatever it would have been. But he also would have been in conversation for, I think, QB1 for next year. But as it is, I do think that he's a guy that, worst case scenario, if he does what he needs to do, stays healthy, and performs through the evaluation cycle, I think he's probably going to be someone who flirts with the top 50, top 75. And maybe, you never know. I mean, if it presses, like Garrett Nussmeier helped himself a lot at the Senior Bowl, but he also had an up and down kind of a choppy year. So, it could be in the eye of the beholder type of thing. And his case, Chambliss's case, is just so interesting because he's trying to get as many options as he wants, I assume, but like the money that the college teams are offering is more in cases of a quarterback than you would be making if you were, pick number 40, I would think, in the NFL. So really interesting. It's a lot like what we see too in college basketball, I think, right now with some of those guys. So the draft decisions have been super interesting, and his is the latest, I think.
So, Nick, the Tennessee Volunteers really could have used Jermod McCoy on the field this year. That never happened. Yeah. So they really could have used him. So, as a Tennessee fan, it was very painful not having him out there. Now, I think everybody I've seen basically has him as a first rounder. I'm just curious, from your perspective, how difficult do you think it will be for Tennessee, or for NFL teams to evaluate him, given the fact that he didn't play last year? I mean, the last time we saw him, he looked really, really good, but that's been over a year ago with an ACL injury tossed in between.
Yeah, the combine, I feel like, is going to be huge for him. This reminds me a lot of what we saw last year with Will Johnson, the Michigan corner who ended up going to Arizona pretty late. Will Johnson was the top 20 talent who just sat the year, didn't play. Will didn't have the type of injury that McCoy had. McCoy had a pretty serious surgery and everything else. But he never came back. He just sat. He didn't do anything at the combine. He kind of hid and didn't work out, and he fell like a rock because of it. If McCoy, to me, if he goes to combine and he's healthy and he can test and he can show and, confirm sort of some of the stuff that we saw on tape of what he is as an athlete and everything else, then I do think he's going to be fine. I do think he'll be a first-round pick. I don't know if he'll be the first corner taken. The Delane kid from LSU had such a good year. I mean, he could move in front of him, some of these other guys do. But I do think he's got such, last year when we saw him as a big, physical, do-everything corner, I think that's too hard to ignore if you get him at the combine healthy, competing, doing everything he can do. Like, that's such a big thing. Last couple of years, we've seen a lot of guys try to dodge this. They go to Indianapolis, oh, I'm hurt, my leg, whatever. And then, it doesn't work. These teams want to see you go there and compete, especially if you sat a year or sat half the year. Caleb Banks, the kid at Florida, is a good example. He missed most of the season with a foot, but he came back at the end, played like one game at the end, maybe 1.5, and then was really good at the Senior Bowl. And everything you hear now from scouts is like he's right back in the top of the top half of the first round. Teams are back in love with him and the whole shot. So for McCoy, I feel like it's going to be an important spring for him to show A, I am healthy, and B, I'm not hiding. Like I was too hurt to play legitimately. It wasn't because I didn't want to show bad tape or whatever it was. Like I think that'll be important for him because the talent is there, but we have to see, what the rest of it shows, I guess, coming through the next couple of months here.
Yeah, I mean, if you have no film from last year and then you're going to sit out left, to me, you've got a bad agent. Like that's just that should be a no-brainer.
And that's what the Will Johnson thing. It was like screaming from the rooftops last year. It's like this guy's getting bad advice. He's being told to hide. You cannot do this. Like even if you go run a time that you're not in love with, you competed. You went out there and you gave it your all. And if you're banged up, whatever. Like I've seen guys go to the combine and work out hurt and end up being better thought of by scouts in the long run because they competed. And I think that's something that sometimes gets lost in the wash, at least the last couple of years anyway.
So Nick, one thing Tennessee Titans fans, I think, are sick of seeing and don't want to see is a high offensive lineman choice. However, I would still argue that, they have another Band-Aid at left tackle right now. It looks like, the left tackle they drafted is going to be their right tackle. So my question for you is, Amawi Goa from Miami or a Fano from Utah, if that player is either of them, I'm sure at least one of them will be there for the Titans at 4. Is that or either of them a good enough player where it's like, this is a anchor your offensive line for a decade kind of player, and you really need to consider it?
Yeah, I do think both of those guys are, especially Fano, the kid from Utah, and really Maui Goa too. He's a warrior type guy. I think both of those guys, Maui Goa especially, I think Fano's better, but I think from a culture standpoint, Maui Goa is one of those guys that come in and help you get serious, help change your culture, help do all those things. Fano was a guy that could play right or left. He could play guard. He could play anything. He's the best athlete of all the tackles. I think he's the best tackle in this class. But both of those guys, I think, have really bright futures, and they would be hard to pass on if I were the Titans. Because right now, when you look at everything, we just talked about all the edges, and they do need help over there, obviously. But I mean, the goal number one probably for Tennessee right now has to be you got to get Cam Ward comfortable. You got to get him going, and you got to keep him on the right track to where at least he's having a chance to get improved and to be close to the max out, whatever prospect you think you have there. So to me, it's like you can't totally ignore. That's why the Tate thing was something that I thought about the whole way. It's like you got to be looking at what you can do to help Cam Ward as much as anything else. And if a great tackle prospect like that, if Fano falls, or if you like Maui Goa more, and it's one of those things where you just can't ignore it. You get to draft night, and it's like we just got to do this. Like I would not ignore that, because I think Tennessee's at such a critical spot right now. You took the young quarterback before a lot of people maybe would have, right? Okay, I like Cam Ward. Everybody kind of likes Cam Ward, but you got to do your job now around him to make sure that you're not kind of ruining it. So it's important that they don't ignore even though it might be boring or, we've done this already, whatever it is, it's important that they don't ignore a really, really good player just because, well, we don't really want to do that type of thing necessarily right now. So I think they're in a tricky spot in some ways, but also, guys, if a tackle like that falls, that could be a trade market too. Like, I think that they should be looking for trade options too, I think, as much as they can to get some more bites at the apple here.
Joe's on a mission to have them draft a tackle in the first round every season. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
At some point, it'll work.
At some point, you're going to get one. Yes, exactly.
That's right. Nick, you're always very kind with your time. Appreciate so much you taking time to be with us this morning, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, you bet, fellas. Take care.
Absolutely. Nick
Thanks,
Baumgartner, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll react to what Nick had to say coming up next. Take your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Robby and Rexrode 1025 The Game. I got some tickets to give away. A pair of tickets to the Nashville Hoops Showdown featuring the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Virginia Cavaliers coming up on Saturday. Tip off at 7 o'clock. To caller number 3, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller number 3 will win a pair of tickets to see Ohio State, Virginia coming up at Bridgestone Arena this Saturday. You may or may not find Joe Rexrode courtside with a foam finger out there. We'll see how it goes.
You never know.
You never know. We'll see how it goes. Appreciate Nick Baumgartner for being with us in the last segment. Joe, a couple things that stand out from that interview. Number one, we've talked a lot about Carnell Tate and whether or not he's worthy of being chosen number 4 in the draft this year when you consider who he was playing with at Ohio State. And is he really one of those Ohio State receivers that's going to come in and be a star in the NFL? Nick Baumgartner seems to really like Carnell Tate. So that was probably the number one thing that stood out to me there. We talked about Jermon McCoy and his journey. And also Baumgartner is on Team Rexrode that, hey, if one of those 2 tackles is there at number 4, you better consider it if you're the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. So, I think Nick basically is like draft them all, draft anyone. No, it was a lot of interesting stuff there. And that, I guess it made me feel a little better about Carnell Tate. Again, it's hard. And again, maybe that's just the wrong way to look at it, but it's like, how could that guy be the number 4 pick when that guy is over there and there's such a difference? I guess the one thing I would ask, and I can't sit here and pretend to know, but like, did Jeremiah Smith occupy so much coverage that like things got considerably easier for Carnell Tate this year? I don't know. I do know that if I was defending Ohio State, I'd probably put a lot of eggs in the Jeremiah Smith basket, but that was interesting. And yeah, I say the tackle stuff, it's kind of trolling, but I'm not kidding. Like, if there's a great one that you can get, what a difference that makes. And then all of a sudden you could be talking about one of the really promising young offensive lines in the league. Again, some of that still depends on Latham. Like, Latham's got to have a year 3 jump like Skoronski did. But if you did have that with Skoronski, and now with your legit 10-year left tackle, all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is one of the really good offensive lines in the league. And a lot of the comeback stories or rebuild stories that are successful in this league do start there.
They do. They also eventually involve probably a pretty good edge rusher and wide receiver at some point along the way. And I just think you're in a spot right now where it'd be very difficult for me to pass on one of those edge rushers that could be available there, whether it's Bailey. I would rank him this way. I like David Bailey. I'd probably go Reese second, and I'd have Bain third. I know that there are other people that totally have that flipped, and that's fine. I think you're going to have some really good options at number 4 from an edge rusher perspective. It would be very difficult for me to pass on one of those guys.
No, I'm a huge fan of Bailey, so no complaints at all if they draft David Bailey. But I guess, okay, so if you are going by the big board, and it's just as a player, you have one of those tackles as just a better overall player than whoever's there from the edge, than Tate or whoever's there for receiver.
How much better?
Well, I don't know. I don't even.
Well, that's seriously, question, that's what I would be
know.
Asking. Like, how much better?
Yeah,
because you're also in a situation. It's not like they can't. I mean, maybe they can. I don't know. It's not like they can't get by with Dan Moore for another year. I mean, he is under contract. He's gonna be there next year. It's not like they can't get by for another year. Whereas I'm looking at edge rusher and wide receiver right now, and I'm like, who's he throwing the ball to, and who's rushing the passer besides Jeffrey Simmons? I know you can't make your entire decision based on that, but I'm just saying, like, how much better are we talking? Because to me, it'd have to be pretty significantly better than like the lineman would be for me to not go edge or wide receiver there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess if you're splitting hairs, then you can go more to need. Again, it's just like if it goes away, I think it's going to go. Okay, yeah, Dan Moore can play this year and probably be okay, not great, but okay. And then there you go. Then so you are talking about. I guess really some of the whole thing also is as much as you can look at next year, project it. You hope that you're not at the top of the draft again, but there's a ton of tackles in this draft.
Yeah.
Is it going to be deep next year? Like there's a lot of things that go into the conversation. But to me, for it to be a non-starter, I think would be a big mistake. Because it just if you're that high in the draft and you're not trading out, and I'm with Nick that a trade out, if you can do it, great. But if you're not, then like it really when you have this many needs, straight up best available on the big board, I think is often how teams also get better because they just go with the best football player.
615-737-1025. Our phone number. A victory for the NCAA yesterday. We will get into that. We got the Rob rant coming up later this hour. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Register today for Stars Trivia Night at Boom Baz in East Nashville on Thursday, February the 19th. It'll be a night full of fun, food, and prizes, all while supporting Stars Nashville, a nonprofit providing free mental health support for students at over 200 schools across Middle Tennessee. For more details and how to register, visit thegamenashville.com/events. We will have the Rob Rant coming up here in just a few minutes, taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Joe, a victory for the NCAA, which hasn't happened very often. Charles Bediako, who we've talked a lot about with the University of Alabama over the last few weeks, can no longer play for the University of Alabama. He had his preliminary injunction denied in a Tuscaloosa circuit court that will prevent him from continuing to play for the Crimson Tide, which overrules the temporary restraining order that he got last month for immediate eligibility. So the Bediako situation, we've talked a lot about, Joe. He is now no longer eligible to play, marking a pretty big win for the NCAA when it comes to their eligibility rules. What do you make of that? And in the aftermath of that, Joe, I guess we'll get to this here in a minute, but what do you do if, like, you're the committee with Alabama with the Bediako information that you had while he played and some of the wins that they've had, and now that he's not there anymore? Like, what do you do with all that if you're the NCAA, if you're the selection committee moving forward?
Yeah, well, the NCAA is not going to do anything with it, and Charlie Baker basically said as much. And again, you remember the TRO still did have in there, like, you can't have retribution. I think that, so it's not like they're going to vacate the games. I mean, the selection committee, I mean, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. I mean, they're going to more judge them on the games that he didn't play.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you could go back and say maybe they would have lost to Auburn, or they would have lost to Texas A&M without him. But ultimately, there's enough. Most of the seasons without him. So most of the evaluations without him, anyway, it's 5 games. And then there's going to be a lot from now until the end. So I don't know that really, matters too much. I don't think they're as good without him. So I think just some results from here to the end may not go their way that might have gone their way, just because, especially as a rim protector, they just don't have anybody. They don't have a rim protector or really like an over-the-top lob guy like him. And so that's the impact. But, yeah, this is a big deal because, I mean, look, we were heading toward, and I think it ends now, maybe not, but like Amari Bailey, and we were heading toward all these guys who had played in college basketball, even if they'd been in the NBA, just be like, all right, well, I'm going to go back and make some money in college basketball. So we at least have a lot. I don't understand why Alabama fans, like some, and Nate Oates don't seem to understand this. Look, I'll listen to Nate Oates. He's talking about, well, what about the European professionals? And, like the Baylor kid, for example, was in the G League. But again, remember, he also was never in college basketball. You start the clock. It's an eligibility rule. And if you forego your eligibility when you go to the draft, you forego your eligibility. That's why this was different than all the other ones, because he was in college and said, I am foregoing my eligibility. Let me raise my hand. I'm choosing to go to the NBA. Okay. Well, you can't then sue your way back in. And if it would have worked out, then I think we would see all kinds of wacky stuff. So does this end that stuff? I hope so. I mean, it's because, again, it's already there's fair discussions to be had about the European pros and whatever, but that's kind of been an accepted thing, right? Like we've kind of accepted that. I mean, Alabama's AD is out here saying these guys were making millions in Europe, and now they weren't. They wouldn't be playing in college basketball. But regardless, they're pros, and I mean that's a fair discussion. It's still different than I'm in college sports, I'm leaving to go to the pros. Oh no, I'm coming back. Thankfully, that a judge correctly looked at that, and some of their arguments were so dumb too. If you read the case, and like the judge said, well, this doesn't deny you making money. You were making money there. Go make money there, right? So good for the judge and good for the NCAA. They needed a win here. And again, I think the sport needed a win here. This was one of those that most people were like, no, you can't go this far.
Well, every now and then it's nice to see common sense win, right? Like sometimes that doesn't happen, and every now and then it's nice to see that. everybody outside of the University of Alabama saw this situation. This is stupid. Like the idea that this guy can go play, sign an NBA contract, play in the G League, and then all of a sudden decide he wants to come back and play college basketball. It's just ridiculous. So the fact that they put a stop to this is awesome. I hope that this is the end of it and that there's no more of these situations that come up here. Hey, look, this, I understand these young kids, which is what they are. They make decisions sometimes, and there have been how many times in whether it's basketball, football, whatever, Joe, how many times have players made decisions about heading into the draft that were just so dumb, right? There are plenty of football players we can go up and down the list of, yeah, you probably should have hung around in college a little bit longer rather than taking a shot at the draft and you going in the 6th round and then being out of the league in 2 years, right? Like that, the history of college football, college basketball is littered with those examples. Sometimes though, you got to live with that decision, right? Like, not everything is just handed to you all the time. And the fact that, you're going to the NBA and go to the NBA G League and then you want to come back and play college basketball, to me is ridiculous. And look, I guess to some degree, I understand the European argument, but guess what? Those leagues aren't the NBA. Like, it's the best league in the world. So to me, even that's different. So I am very glad that this is ruled this way. The NCAA is probably throwing a party today, Joe. It's probably the first court case they've won in 10 years. So congratulations to them.
Yeah. I mean, this is they've won. There's some other the eligibility stuff has been denied, and that's really like the one area where there are some judges saying, okay, well, these are the rules. You laid them out, and yeah, why would you break this? It's like as long as you're not, again, denying someone the freedom to make money in this country, then you have a chance. So, but I'm with you on all that stuff. And the thing is, I think one of the good things about this era is that we do have a lot more of these college athletes who are like, actually, I'm going to stay in college.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it's like, hey, Hunter Dickinson, how old are you? And how do you still have eligibility left? And obviously that goes into like the COVID stuff. And you had that extra year. I mean, there's actually some like 9th year senior apparently right now. Now it was injured for 4 years, but still It's like, holy cow. But we do have more people are like, why are you making a risky decision? When you can make good money. And so like, I don't remember, like Bediako was on that Final Four team. And I don't even remember him leaving or whatever, but like, boy, that is a bad move at that time. You're not an NBA big.
Yeah.
And you're a G League big. So stay at Alabama and make that money, So, and another thing here, and look, I'll give Nate Oates credit because he was asked the other day, like, well, because they're like, well, he wants to come back and get his degree. Okay. Someone asks, okay, well, if this gets denied, are you still going to pay for him to get his degree? Absolutely, 100%. Well, you should, and good for him. But also that hurts the court case because the lawyers are trying to argue that he would be screwed. So it's like in the midst of, I mean, it would be absurd for Nate Oates to be like, nah, he can't play. Get out of here, dude. You can't use the study hall. Get out of here. Like you can't do that. But at the same time, that's how some of these lawyers go way too far, like with these arguments, like people are going to be cast out in the cold and then it gets exposed. And that's part of why you lose too.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Matt on the text line asking, do you think that athletes staying in college longer will affect rookie contracts? I don't think so. Like probably depends on the sport, but like the rookie contracts have actually gotten better in the NFL, right? Remember the contract that Jamarcus Russell got when he was drafted by the Raiders? And it's like, good grief. Look at how much money Jamarcus Russell's making for the Raiders. And that worked out well. I'm glad he got it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, for the most part, I don't think there's going to be too much impact. Yeah. That's the thing. It used to be in the NBA too. It's like, I remember Glenn Robinson, when he came out, got like an unbelievable number as the number one pick. And then eventually through collective bargaining, they made it more a scale. So it's not going to be absurd, but it's still more money for more people. It benefits more players, but it's not like super high at the top.
We'll have the Rob Rant coming up next. Take more of your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
There's really only one time yesterday where I was visibly angry. Oh, no! We would not tolerate that sort of behavior in Knoxville! I saw the quarterback at the press conference almost cried.
It's my quarterback.
I'm not threatening anything. I'm just telling you, man. Sometimes it does need to be violence, okay? Wanted to punch my television screen. All I can do is just F-bomb my way through it. Fart you, I won't do what you tell me. I've got other words I can say, but I'm going to hold those off.
I was born, lived a man.
It is that time. Time for the Rob Rant here on the program. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Today, Joe, the Rob Rant is going to serve more as a public service announcement, so bear with me here a little bit. If you could see me right now, you would see my right leg propped up on this table that's next to my setup right now. Like it's been sitting here for an hour and 48 minutes straight. It's kind of asleep at this point, but I was in a pretty significant amount of pain this morning because yesterday I got a spot on my leg cut out that it turned out to be invasive melanoma. So if you are pasty white like me in particular, pay attention to this. So I had this spot on my leg that had been there for years, and I'd really never thought anything about it because, I'm 30 some odd years old. I've never really had that many health problems in my life. Certainly haven't had cancer or skin cancer. So I didn't really even think about it. And then one day I was just kind of looking at it and I was like, that doesn't look right. Let's head to the dermatologist. So early January, I go to the dermatologist. I get the spot biopsied and it comes back as stage 1A invasive melanoma. So obviously that was pretty stunning that I had, skin cancer and a pretty serious type of skin cancer on my body. It got cut out yesterday. The reports from my doctors are all good, which I'm very thankful for, and that's all good to see and all that stuff. So I think we got it all, and I think we're in good shape right now. I'm going to have to monitor my skin moving forward. But, Joe, the message is pay attention to your skin because had I waited much longer, this could have been a way more serious situation than it is. And, I also had not really thought about this, which I should have before this, but the process of when you get the spot biopsied on your skin to when you get your results back can sometimes take like 2 weeks. And I will tell you, especially for somebody who'd never done it before, like sitting there waiting for them to tell you whether or not you had cancer on your leg is it's pretty challenging. Like you start to think about everything. I was like, I'm 33. I've got a 2.5-year-old. I've got a wife. Like what happens if this is like a big deal? Like what happens if this is bad cancer? Like you start to think about all those different things, all those different set of circumstances. And again, I'm very lucky. Like the results have come back and I'm in a good spot and I think everything is going to be fine. I know there are plenty of people that get results back that are way worse than me. So I'm very cognizant of that. But my message to everyone today, Joe, just pay attention to what's going on with your body, on your body, because sometimes if you wait around too long, it's too late at that point. And I'm very thankful that we got mine in time, but it's been a heck of a start to 2026 over the last few weeks.
No, it's a great message. We're all thankful that you're okay. And, the thing about this story to me that stands out is that you independently looked at it and said, let's go in. I mean, that's a big deal because I think a lot of people wait, or it takes a little more than that. And I could raise my hand too. It's like sometimes it's like you got to be a little bit more proactive and a little bit more vigilant. So great job doing that because I think sometimes when these things, people just get to them too late.
Yeah.
I mean, but melanoma, that's not a good word. That's a scary word. So yeah, don't envy that time period for sure, man. Of like you said, like the thinking about it, and worrying about it. But this is it's a great message for people to pay attention to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that spot, it's amazing. Like looking back through pictures, because the spot on my leg had been there for a long time. Like it's a very, I guess, slow moving melanoma, but it had been there for a long time. I'm talking. Like I found pictures, Joe, from like 2020 where it was there. And you're talking about over 5 years, so 6 years at that point. So, I don't know exactly when it started to morph into melanoma. It may not have been melanoma the whole time, but like just that spot and how weird it looked, you could see it like growing and evolving. So just pay attention to some spots on your body. And if you see anything that starts to change, that's when you really the kind of the alarm bells need to go off and get it looked at. And look, the statistics say that most of the time when you go in there and get something looked at, it's not skin cancer. Your body does have, full disclosure, I got another spot looked at and it's not cancer, right? So like your body does have moles and spots that change all the time. But if you start to see some things that are changing pretty rapidly, just go get it checked out. Could end up saving your life.
And I'll add to that. And this again, maybe where like the generational differences. I mean, I think back to the 70s and like how people used to just sit in the sun and just put like suntan oil on and just cook like bacon,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I used to go out as
Kramer
a kid,
style?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Kenny Rogers roasters.
Like, I used to go out and just go out, just go outside. And
Yeah.
it's funny, like as parents, like when the kids were little, like it's like, just come here and I'm just going to put this huge glob all over you. And like, but for me, I wear a big bucket hat and just, I when I go in the ocean, I have a long sleeve, like, whatever the heck that's called, sun resistant shirt. I mean, it's, and that, man, just that stuff is, I mean, we all love the sun, but it can be very damaging.
Let's head to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland to the program. Adam, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Well, Robbie, I'm glad you're all right, man. This is so weird, by the way, because like we have zero cancer in my family. Like it's just heart attacks kill us. That's our favorite is heart attacks. But my dad, like the last couple of weeks, he was like, I'm gonna go to a dermatologist just because like we got moles and stuff. And they go through with like a little bitty magnifying glass. I'm sure you had the same thing and looked at every single thing on him and then found the exact same thing, found melanoma. And he had his cut out last week. So like I'm hearing this, I'm like, God, dude, it's so weird. I'm glad that you're all right, man. Yeah, I'll be thinking about
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, like it's, of course, in the immediate aftermath of it, Joe, there's like after they pull the first spot, you start looking around all over your body and like, well, does that look weird? Does that look weird? And you can drive yourself nuts doing all that. So I try to stay away from that. But I'm very thankful. I believe that I was kind of protected through all this, and I'm thankful it turned out the way that it did. But again, like just pay attention to your body out there, particularly if you see some things on there that are changing in a not so natural way.
And I assume now, because I do this like every 6 months, you're probably going to be in a rotation of just being checked now, right?
Every 3 months for the next
every
year.
3, yeah. And that's a
then,
great thing too. Like when you let them do it, they're just like, doop, 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 doop. Okay, say it. And it's like good. I don't have to wonder about it.
Exactly.
Doctors are good.
That's my message today. Not much of a rant, but it was sometimes a public service announcement is needed, Joe. And if you are as white as the snow that we got a couple of weeks, like I am, in particular, pay attention to maybe some sunspots that are going on out there.
Yes, very good PSA.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're all right.
Thank you. Me too. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We will get into the Titans coming up next. If Cam Ward is going to take the jump in year 2 under Brian Dable and Robert Saleh that we all hope, what area has to improve the most? We will get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. Robby and Rexrode presented by Green Ventures Landscaping. Get thicker grass, better color, and fewer bare spots with turf application. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. So, Joe, the offseason officially is here. We'll have plenty of time to continue to discuss player acquisition, be that free agency, be that the draft, and who they select in free agency and the draft. Going to play a large part into what this next conversation kind of looks like. However, purely Cam Ward in year 2. Cam Ward gets through his rookie season, plays in all 17 games. He did get hurt at the last game of the regular season, and hopefully the shoulder rehab's going well. But you got Brian Daboll in the fold now. You got Robert Saleh in the fold, brand new coaching staff. And everybody is going to be looking for a pretty big jump from Cam Ward from year 1 to year 2. Now, how realistic is a year 1 to year 2 jump that Drake May just put together? I don't know. Not only from an individual standpoint, but from a team standpoint, we'll see. But Cam Ward will be expected with this coaching staff to be pretty good in year 2 with Brian Daboll leading the way on the offensive side of the ball. So, Joe, as you watched Cam Ward this year, as you have now a full season of information on him to gather from, if he is going to take a big step in year 2, what's the most important area where he has to improve? What does that step of improvement, what does that year 2 jump look like for Cam Ward in your mind, independent of the personnel and the people around him?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you just isolate him and take it away from protection and more weapons and all that stuff, it's accuracy, which is, that's always an interesting thing. Some of his accuracy issues at times this year, not being sure on something, like does it have something to do with the offense or lack of chemistry? Sometimes a throw can look errant, and the receiver was supposed to sit down, or the receiver, misread the coverage and was supposed to keep running the route. Stuff like that can happen. But I think it's pretty obvious after a year of watching him that he just misses too many throws that should just be gimmies. So that's it to me. That's the number one thing. You can always improve on your pre-snap recognition and your immediate post-snap recognition. And I think he definitely needs to improve in terms of his feel for like when to run, and he needs to run a little bit more.
Yeah.
But accuracy is 1, 2, and 3. And then you get into, so how much can you improve that? How much can he improve that? Some people do. Some people will tell you that it's very difficult to really change that, but you're always working mechanically on things. You're always working on footwork, and then he has the injury to overcome too.
Well, that's where I would go with it, is footwork. And I think, that is accuracy, right? Like that bleeds into the accuracy conversation, but the footwork is the thing for me. Like how many times in his rookie year did we talk about, some throws that either sailed and got away from him, or in other cases, Joe, some throws that just didn't make it to the target because his feet are pointing at, both sidelines rather than pointing at the target, right? And we've talked about it, during the course of a season, when you're in practice and there's limited practice reps and you're spending your time preparing for the football game and putting in the plays that you're going to run and running your offense and going over your game plan and all those things, there's not a ton of time in the season to work on your mechanics, right? Well, the offseason there is, and that's what makes the shoulder part of this concerning, I think, is, when can he really start throwing the ball and working on those mechanics at live speed? So that's going to be something to monitor this offseason. But there's no doubt about it. Like everybody would acknowledge this, and then Cam Ward would acknowledge this. Like the footwork has to get better. And the footwork, if it does get better, will hopefully lead to more accuracy. But I think the fundamental question that you've brought up is going to largely determine his career, which is how much more accurate can he get? How much more consistent can he get? Now, I said independent of personnel and decisions they make this offseason, Obviously, if they make the right personnel decision, that's going to help him in every facet, right? Like if they can run the ball better, that's going to help him. If they protect him better, obviously that's going to help him. So all those things clearly play into this. But on his own, like if the footwork doesn't become more consistent and he's just going to struggle with that throughout his career, yeah, he'll make some great plays. Yeah, he'll have some great games. But will he ever consistently be the accurate quarterback that you need him to be if those things don't improve? It's hard for me to get there. So that's where I start with him, is like the footwork got to get better.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get there too. And I can't really think of you think about Patrick Mahomes and some of the throws he makes and the plays he makes off schedule and things like that. And Cam Ward can do that and do some of that stuff. But Patrick Mahomes hits his layups at a high percentage. You know, it's just just really are not going to see too many, if any, quarterbacks in this league make it if they can't have a higher level of consistency than him. Josh Allen, greatest example of a turnaround and accuracy. He still sometimes will make some throws that you're like, ooh, that looks like Josh Allen of 2018, 2019. Yeah. You know, where you never knew where the ball was going to go, but it's not too often. Lamar Jackson, I think, got better too.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I was curious, Joe, for Sam Darnold, right? Like, how much better, how much more accurate has Sam Darnold got? And look, we've talked about this before. I understand that if you're just basing it purely on completion percentage, it's more complicated than that. I mean, what's the play call? What's the depth of target? There's a lot of things that go into measuring accuracy of a quarterback. But the bottom line is, for the, you know, whether it was when he was a starter in New York, whether he started in Carolina, he was the backup in San Francisco, for his entire career, Sam Darnold was basically hovering around right at 60%. Like he was 59.6% completion percentages last year in New York. He was 60%, 60.9 his year in San Francisco as a backup. You know, in Carolina, he started 11 games. He was 59.9% completion percentage. So, I mean, his entire career, he had been right around 60%. Well, he gets to Minnesota, and he immediately goes from basically a career 60% completion percentage all the way up to 66.2. This year in Seattle, he was 67.7. So you're talking about 2 years in a row now where you've seen significant jumps in the completion percentage. And again, it's more complicated than that. You got to talk about personnel. You got to talk about all those things. But that does kind of indicate he has become way more accurate in the last 2 years in Minnesota and in Seattle. And I was interested to see what his numbers in particular look like with this, because we always go back to Josh Allen, and there's no doubt he's probably the best example of it. But here's another example in Darnold where, I mean, it has gone up pretty dramatically the last couple of years.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting question on Darnold, is if there what was any sort of, and maybe it's been written about, I missed it, but any sort of significant mechanical change. You know,
did Shanahan get a hold of him and fix something? Is what
I'm
wondering.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's probably more just confidence and, like, yeah, obviously this is where, I mean, so much of this is other people. It's, you know, you have protection. I mean, like if you have Justin Jefferson in your offense, how much easier is any of the short stuff, right?
A lot,
right? So like stuff like that, and JSN is an awfully good weapon that he has now. So a lot goes into it, but that would be interesting to know if also just the pure, and I think a lot with Sam Darnold is clearly mental, and most of this stuff is, but he admitted to seeing the ghost when he was with the Jets. You go through years, you stick in, you hang around, all of a sudden, like, the confidence is there to not just just play well, see the field better and stuff like that, but even for him as a guy who has turned it over, still not be afraid to put the ball in tight spots, and just sort of, he just has, it's not a recklessness, but like he does toe that line pretty well. And so some of those completions are because he's willing to be risky. I mean, I think one of my criticisms of Marcus Mariota when he was here, and I know you have many, so you know you can say your piece too, but one of my things with him was I always thought that he was afraid, or not always, but I thought he was too often afraid to try to put the ball into tight windows.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just cost him plays that you have to be able to make as a good quarterback in the NFL.
Really nice guy, though. Ben on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says Dable putting on the tape Adam says Dable putting on the tape day one. Wait, why does he keep dropping the ball and nobody's touching him? I want him to fix that first. Ben on the text line says he needs to cut out the fumbles by more than half. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
like the
those are
fumbling
fair.
has got to fix the fumbling issues.
Yeah, I agree. And you just have to be better about, as soon as that contact comes, bracing. Some quarterbacks are just better at it than others. But if he never fixes his fumbling, but becomes the kind of passer that we're talking about, I mean, what would you choose? I mean,
Accuracy to me is way more important. You'd like them to fix both, right? But if you're picking one, the accuracy and being able to consistently put the ball where it needs to be is going to determine whether or not he's the franchise quarterback you hope he is, right? I mean, that's what it is. Like if he can consistently put the ball where you need him to put it, then he's probably going to be the quarterback for the next 10 years. If he can't, they're going to have some big problems.
Yeah. And again, this is separate because we're talking about just him, but does he have guys that he grows with in terms of chemistry? So some of these incompletions become completions just because they're totally on the same page now. You hope that DK and Ayman or wherever they end up slotting in, because you also hope that there's people better than them who are on the team, but you still expect those guys to be part of the rotation to get plenty of targets. And if you can be rookies together and have several years together, that should also naturally improve some of the numbers.
So where does Cam Ward need to take the biggest jump from year one to year two, with Brian Dable and Robert Saleh now leading the charge? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game.
Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com. Can you walk us through a bit your plan for Cam Ward and how you and Brian expect to get the most out of him heading into his second year and into his career?
No, absolutely. Great question too. Like Cam, from everything that I've gathered, just all the discussions I've had throughout the building and throughout the league, comes with an elite work ethic, elite character, an elite person. And, when you look at his body of work as a rookie, a lot of these rookies, when they come in through the middle of OTAs. But so the biggest thing that we're going to work with Cam, just going all the way back to the beginning, we've gotten a whole off season to work with him, take him back to the very, very beginning, both on the field, off the field, the process at which what it looks like to not only be a professional with regards to preparation in his body, but as a professional with regards to preparing from a game planning standpoint or a playbook standpoint. But, just talking with Daves over the course of the last few weeks, he is the perfect man to match up with Cam and to maximize who he is. So again, we're really pumped to get to work with Cam and get him to where we all know he can be.
That's Robert Saleh discussing Cam Ward and the plan for him this offseason. Joe, what outlet was it that asked that question?
I think that was Paul Kuharski. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com.
Okay.
With a great question.
Was a great question. Good marketing by PK too.
Yeah, man.
Paul Kuharski from Paul Kuharski, paulkuharski.com. By the way, we'll have Paul Kuharski on the show tomorrow. Looking forward to it.
He should have he needs to do more banner advertising, like a hat with his website on it, maybe glasses, put a little sticker on them with the we need to work with Paul a little bit on marketing himself more. He doesn't mention his own name enough.
We'll see if we can fix that tomorrow. Coach Robby, Coach Joe, getting at it with Paul tomorrow on the show. Looking forward to that. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. The big jump from year 1 to year 2 from Cam Ward. If he does it, what's he going to have to improve on the most? Accuracy seems to be the most popular part of this, right? We have heard some people say, take off, run a little bit more. When you get the opportunity to run, go run. Now, I agree with that for the most part. Now, he did take off run on the design run in Jacksonville and got himself hurt. So I don't know how much I want him running. But, it's the same thing with every quarterback, right, Joe? When the opportunity is there and there's nothing open in the passing game and you can go pick up 6 yards by scrambling, getting out of the pocket and getting down and getting out of the way before you get hit, that's fine. Generally speaking, I have no problem with my quarterback running. Matter of fact, I encourage my quarterback to run as long as they can avoid getting hit. When they start to get hit, that's when I got a problem with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing with Ward, a little more running. I thought with Levis sometimes maybe a little less running, but certainly less running that then ends with you trying to truck someone. I think he kind of learned about that a little bit, but yeah, Cam seems to have a pretty good feel for that stuff and avoiding the big hit. It just, there's just a few times, there were quite a few times I'd say this year where I just thought that something was there, and instead, it turns into an incompletion. Trying to force something that really isn't there downfield where there's 5-6 free yards for you, and that's a tough one because you want to hang in there. He's great at extending plays. Certainly at Miami, he had some unbelievable plays where he extended, and then made a huge throw. And he did that a few times last year, but it's just harder for the outcome to be that in the NFL. I think it's also harder for the outcome to be that when you don't have guys downfield who are big time difference makers. Like DK obviously has the speed, but maybe that's something that as the receiving core improves, you see more of those throws hit.
Well, and to that point, whether it's Carnell Tate or whoever, I would assume they're adding a couple guys to the receiving room this offseason. Are you adding guys that can go make some combat catches for you? They can go up and whether it's winning 50-50 balls or just positioning your body where you're boxing out the defender and you're coming down with the ball when maybe you shouldn't, when the throw's not necessarily there, right? How many of those type of guys have they had recently? Not very many, man. Calvin Ridley's good. Calvin Ridley's not really that guy, right? Calvin Ridley's the speed guy and he could get open and that's great. And that's what you want from your receiver. Well, like AJ Brown, not to go back to AJ Brown all the time, but AJ Brown could get open. AJ Brown also, like when he was covered, still came down with the ball a lot, right? Because he's more physical and he just went up and grabbed it. So can you help your quarterback out by bringing in some receivers that can go grab the ball? I mean, that would be, in all seriousness, like if you're looking at a guy like Dobbs, he's really good at that. Like I'd go get Dobbs can do that. That's why he's so good in the red zone. So can you go get some guys that can help your quarterback out coming down with maybe a few more footballs than they should?
Yeah. And those guys are great. I also think that the slot guy who just always gets open is so valuable too.
Who we've been clamoring for in this offense for years.
Yeah, in today's game. So again, I was glad that at least Baumgartner acknowledged, he talked about Tate and he talked about Jordan Tyson, but he mentioned Mekhi Lemon after that. And I still think whoever ends up with that guy is going to be really glad that they did. But
if they ended up with an offensive tackle and Mekhi Lemon, would you have to like go get another, like a new button, like retire the Nick Westbrook-Akine button pin that's on your shirt and go get another one?
I might have to. Gosh, I wonder where that is. I hope I have that somewhere. Thanks again, Austin Stanley. That was a very nice gift. Yeah, I might have to. You throw in Jeremiah Love, and it's just I might have to like buy a suite for next year. But yeah, the big physical guy, the shifty slot guy, the speed guy, whatever they can get to help, they need to try to get. By the way, AJ Brown, is he going to get traded?
I don't know.
He really might get traded. I wonder where that would, like, who would be in the market for him. I mean, he's still a great player. He's probably past where he was talked about as one of the top, handful of guys. But I wonder, like, what team would he change the math for?
Well, number one spot would be New England, right?
I was going to say, what about reuniting with the Bravester? It's just they need to get, like they got the other old guy who used to be great. And then AJ's not old, but he's been around a little bit now. But yeah, that's a very intriguing thought. AJ and Vrabel reunited.
Yeah, I mean AJ's 28. I think he'll be 29 by the time next season comes around. So, I mean, you're starting to get on, towards that 30 mark. But like, I still think AJ probably got a few more years left of being pretty darn good. Like, he had his down season this year where nobody on Philadelphia could figure out how to, move the ball forward. And he still ended up with 78 catches for 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. So if that's his down season, what could it be like if you get him somebody that's giving him the ball all the time?
Yeah, it could be pretty good. I suppose the Titans could. This is all new people here. I mean,
bring it back.
It's other than ownership, right? It's all new people here from when he left. So shouldn't be any hard feelings either way.
Andrew says, Joe's on the record. For Cam to get better, we need Restrepo in the slot.
Oh, that is true. He does.
They've got one available.
He is a shifty slot guy. That is true. Well, I'm sure next year we'll really see the impact of Restrepo being added to the roster.
Just needed some time.
Yeah. Take that big year 1 to year 2 jump.
You think we'll see a bunch more RPO with Dable?
That's a good question.
And Ward, I know Tehran's been talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
TDR
it makes sense. Yeah, you would think so.
Even if Ward is not, a great runner, you wonder how much the actual running ability affects the effect, how much it can affect how well you run RPO. How much does the run threat actually matter?
Yeah. Well, and also just
like with play action.
What are they doing at back? Like, who's going to be the running back for the Titans next year? Like, I know Pollard closed out the year well. My guess is, Joe, they're probably still going to move on and go find somebody else. So everybody's going to point to Breece Hall, and maybe it ends up being Breece Hall. I have no idea. But who's the running back going to be for the Titans? And can you be effective running the ball from the jump next year? Which, frankly, with that offensive line, they better be effective running the ball from the jump next year because they weren't this year, and we saw them do it at the end of the year. And consequently, Joe, the offense looked a lot better toward the end of the year than it did earlier in the year.
Yeah, they should be able to hit the ground running with that. Pun sort of intended. But
Nice.
it's interesting because I think Pollard's not a bad option. It's just a question of, can you upgrade? Like Breece Hall, I mean, that's an upgrade.
Yeah.
Drafting someone, there's some guys you can get. It doesn't have to be Jeremiah Love. Those other guys. I mean, the other guy, Jaden Price from Notre Dame, boy, he's pretty freaking good too.
Yep.
But can you spend a pick there, given all the other needs? That's going to be really interesting. It's important though. Like you're right. They should be able to do that pretty well right away.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The Predators general manager search, not off to a great start. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, not a great start for the Predators in their search for a general manager. I don't think it's the world's biggest deal or anything, but we talked about it at the time. They announced that CAA, Creative Artists Agency, was going to help them lead the search for their next general manager. They've been hired to help the Predators and were the search firm involved. And we talked about that. Like, basically their role was going to be, let's screen the candidates, field the candidates, put some names in front of you. And then ultimately it's going to be, Haslam and Trotz and Saban and Sean Henry and Michelle Kennedy and all these people they've got on the committee making the ultimate decision. Well, apparently that's not happening anymore. I first started to hear about this, Joe, from Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast. So like the day after Barry Trotz did his press conference, Elliot Friedman was talking about everything that went on in the press conference. And he basically said at the end of that part of the show, he was like, now I am hearing that the NHL, the NHLPA could have some problems with the Predators hiring CAA as a possible violation of the league's regulations regarding agents. Now, for whatever reason, Joe, and I don't really know why this is, the NFL, Major League Baseball, I think, definitely the NBA, they don't have any problem with like players and managers / coaches, whatever, being involved with the same agency, right? Like we see it all the time in the NFL and the NBA that, such and such player and such coach have the same agency or whatever. Apparently that's frowned upon in the NHL and they want no part of that. Certainly the NHLPA doesn't want any part of that. So all that being said, CAA is no longer in connection with the Predators in terms of leading their search here. So the plan from the start pretty immediately thrown off course by this with the Predators. Again, I don't think it's the world's biggest deal. It's not like the Predators aren't going to be able to hire somebody now because they don't have CAA running the firm. I'm sure they'll go find somebody else to kind of help them do what CAA was going to do. But it's not a great start, Joe, when that was your plan originally, that you come out and roll out, and then like 3 days later, that's no longer happening.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's just a sort of a public miscue that probably doesn't mean that much, but you still kind of raise your eyebrow and say, so how do we get to this? Where was there a misunderstanding that this wouldn't like be an issue?
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it kind of comes down to there of what does that look like for now, pivoting forward from that. I mean, look, CAA, for those who don't know, like a kind of a big deal that was made in the aftermath of that was it was like, well, Saban, right? Like Saban, that's where Jimmy Sexton is and all these other things. So can you use kind of that partnership there? It really had nothing to do from some of the talking points around here about like the players. But I think like Forsberg and Marchessault, guys like that are represented by CAA. And for whatever reason, the NHL and the NHLPA just don't like that partnership. They're really, I think, as far as I know, and I'm not overly familiar with the Major League Baseball part of this, but as far as I know, they're like the ones that really crack down on this.
Yeah. So does this actually have any sort of tangible effect on the search? I mean, I doubt it. Again,
probably not.
A lot of that stuff it really is just like information gathering and just making sure that you have the data you need, and obviously everybody's like these guys have people in mind. They talk to people, they know everybody. They're the ones making the decisions, of course, and then of course you're going to loop in ownership. But so, I mean, I guess maybe this created more work for some people who weren't going to have to do as much stuff, but I don't think it's much more than that.
Well, they got to get the hire right. We know that. So does this affect them getting the hire right? It shouldn't, but I'm interested to see how this goes here. It's just not a great look that you rolled out of the press conference what your plan is going to be. And then 3 days later, basically they're like, yeah, that's not happening anymore. We're going to have to pivot from that point. So, that's part of what happens when you do these things on the fly. I mean, it's not going to affect the interest in the job or anything. And that's probably my main takeaway of what people have been talking about this since the news was announced last week, Joe, is there's just going to apparently be an absolute ton of interest in this job, which is good. And then you got to navigate your way through that and make the right choice. if you're Haslam and if you're Saban and all these people making the decision.
Yeah. Saban, CAA guy all the way, like you said.
Is he going to remove himself from the committee now?
I don't know. I mean, he's on ESPN telling Lane Kiffin to take the LSU job. So I don't think conflicts of interest are a big concern of his. But I am interested in, like, Nick Saban, like, how much of will he get in there? Will he, like, how involved will he be in this whole thing, and how strong will his voice be?
Well, that was another interesting thing that Friedman said on last week's 32 Thoughts podcast. It was basically like Saban, like, he's not in there as just as like a face. Like, he wants to be involved. Now, I don't know, like, what does that mean? Well, like, to what degree is Nick Saban going to be involved? I don't know. But, like, when you think about it, like, if you're identifying candidates that are going to lead your organizations, like, Nick Saban's not getting in there, asking about, what sort of power play they're going to run, or what sort of, like, how they're going to build their personnel out to match up with what they want to run in the neutral zone, because he didn't know what he's talking about there. But, like, there are some things in sports, Joe, and we talked about this at the time he was hired. There are things pretty universal across the world of sports of, like, identifying leadership and identifying a plan and making sure that you've got the people in place that are actually positioned to execute that plan versus people who just blow smoke in an interview setting, which does happen a lot in the world of pro sports.
Are you going to listen to me, or are you going to listen to these guys?
I prefer the left wing lock. All right.
Yeah.
That's it. I think Saban
don't take another shot from the point on the power play ever again.
Yeah. I think he obviously, like, misses the competitive juices. There's only so much you probably get. So many Saturdays, you got McAfee constantly yammering away in your ear, and it's just like, God, I miss actually competing. So this is an outlet for that. So be interested, to see how involved he wants to be, and whether he makes an impact. He certainly knows successful organizations and how to build one. It's just, we're talking about different things, but there are some things that are commonalities.
Joe, some news on the NFL front. Mike Garafolo, among others, putting this out there. The Giants are interviewing former Titans head coach Brian Callahan for their quarterback coach job.
Okay.
Callahan served in that role with the Lions and the Raiders from 2016 to 2018 before becoming the OC in Cincinnati. But the quarterback coach job, Brian Callahan is being interviewed for with John Harbaugh.
Well, you would think that would mean there's probably a pretty good chance he gets it, just because he interviewed for OC. So, I mean, I guess if they didn't like him, if they weren't taking him seriously, why are they still talking to him again?
I mean, that would kind of suck if you're him to be interviewed for the OC job and not get it, and then be interviewed for the quarterback coach job and not get it. And it's like, hey, Brian, if you want to come back and you want to be like our defensive run game coordinator, then maybe you can interview for that too. Maybe third time's the charm.
Brian, we've got a quality control gig open, actually. So you can go back to being a 20-20-20 guy, which is well, you can't be a 20-20-20 guy. That's in your 20s. That's not him. 20 hours a day of work and about $20,000 a year.
There you go. Well, he's getting paid. So
got that Amy money.
Yeah, got that money. Really shouldn't be a concern. He's fine.
Exactly. No, it'll be interesting. That seems about right for him. Maybe. Yeah, I figured OC, but a QB coach job, and then if it goes well, if Jackson Dart plays well, that probably leads to an OC opportunity again at some point.
Well, he's interviewing for all these OC jobs. He's not getting them, and I just wonder if, like, how much of the OC interview is going over the rule book and figure out if he knows that one elbow does in fact equal 2 feet.
No, Brian, we can't throw 2 forward passes on the same play. That's actually, that's not allowed. So got to keep that in mind. Yeah, it's pretty interesting to think about Daboll, wanting Cam Ward. They go with Jackson Dart. He gets fired. And now Callahan, of course, they get Cam Ward. Now he would be going over there with Jackson, kind of trading places on the quarterback situation. Maybe someday that'll be an amazing storyline when the Giants and Titans meet in the Super Bowl.
The old switcheroo, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Final segment of the day coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, Vanderbilt basketball back at it tonight, taking on Auburn. Vanderbilt had the disappointing loss to Oklahoma over the weekend, 92-91. They're back at it on the road, taking on the Auburn Tigers tonight. So What do you make of this game for Vanderbilt as they try to get back on the winning path and improve to 20-4 with a win tonight?
Yeah, it's a huge one for sure. I spent a few days with Auburn last week, and it's interesting that Auburn gets the Charles Bediako, who really kind of kicked their butt, and now it's like, and now he can't play anymore. Sorry, Auburn. That loss still sticks with your record, though. But I'll say that after the game, he was like telling his team, in the post-game locker room, he's like, now we go from Bama, they're good, but like Vanderbilt actually runs offense, like they actually have like one of the best offenses we're going to see all year. So this actually is a harder game for us. Now, of course, that's a coach who's going to say that to a team, but in some ways, if Vanderbilt's at its best, I mean, I think he's right. I think Vanderbilt is better than Alabama. They've beaten Alabama. But the problem is Vanderbilt has been so banged up. There's a weird stuff going on with Frankie Collins. Duke Miles coming back and I don't know where we are with that. I don't think he should be back for this one. So if Vanderbilt wins this game at Auburn, as kind of desperate as Auburn is and ticked off after that one, that would be a huge, to me, statement for Vanderbilt, and probably only happens if Tyler Tanner goes crazy from outside.
Yep, they're going to need him to play really well. I mean, he did on Saturday, and it wasn't enough in the end eventually, but I think he ended up with 37 on Saturday. But they need him to play well from the jump tonight. Big game for Vanderbilt on that front. Tennessee plays again tomorrow on the road against Mississippi State, so we'll see how they respond after losing to Kentucky last weekend. But Vanderbilt's got Auburn on the road, and then they got A&M at home coming up on Saturday, and then on the road at Missouri. So getting healthy here over the next few weeks is going to be really important for them. I mean, everything still up for grabs for Vanderbilt when you look at where they're at in the standings right now, but some big games coming up. A&M is going to be an interesting game too, because they've had a lot of wins earlier in the year. They were talking about this on the broadcast the other night. Their schedule has started to toughen up here a little bit, so we'll see what that looks like and how Vanderbilt responds to that. But more than anything, just got to get healthy. That's the name of the game for them right now.
Yeah, you got to get healthy. They already, the depth isn't great. I mean, it's more front court. They have plenty of depth in the perimeter when they are healthy, but obviously that's strained right now. So that's, and then you got a couple big ones with with Vanderbilt and Tennessee going head to head. Those are going to be good games. I mean, I know you're waiting with bated breath for my bracket every Tuesday. I've got them both as 5 seeds now. So, Tennessee has really closed the gap. Vanderbilt's come back to the pack a little bit. Tennessee has risen. And so, they're both competing to be top 4, protected seeds. And those games, which I didn't think a few weeks ago, I would have said, man, Vanderbilt might truck these guys. I don't think that anymore. I think we're talking about probably 2 really good games.
Just imagine where Tennessee could be if they could hold on to double-digit leads against Kentucky, which is a big problem for them.
Yeah, well, they'd be a 4, if not a 3, and they'd be right there. They'd be tied for the lead in the SEC with the Florida Gators. So yeah, it's a problem. It's a weird thing with them and Mark Pope. Rick Barnes is like, bring back Calipari, man.
Yeah.
I liked going against him, but for whatever reason, this Mark Pope offense, which at times has been a total mess, but they are playing a lot better now. It just really bothers Tennessee, and that includes even last year's elite defense. This year's is not as good, but I don't know. That's something he's going to figure out here.
Justin from Greenbrier on the text line saying, I know it's not a hot topic on the station, but can we talk a little bit about how disappointing the U.S. has been at the Olympics so far? Joe, have you gotten into the Olympics yet? Frankly, I've not watched a ton of it yet. I've watched some, but I'm kind of waiting for the hockey to start, the NHL best on best.
Yeah, I haven't really locked in, so I can't. I really, if you have a quick minute, like in what events, Justin? I mean, obviously we all know like the Lindsey Vonn situation, which was but that's not. I mean, that's just an incredible attempt to and then she breaks her leg.
Yeah.
But no, I am not aware of that. So at some point I will get. But yeah, like obviously hockey. I mean, I think hockey is the most. interesting. I think, I depending on who's involved, figure skating is something I've always, gotten into. Could be speed skating. I mean, actually, I've become quite a curling fan too.
Same.
So I don't know how we're doing in that, but that's also the domain of the Canadians typically.
Well, I mean, Norway is doing well right now. Norway's got the most medals at 11, so got to catch up to the Norwegians out there. But yeah, look, I watched some curling. I have always said this: the Olympic event, regardless of summer or winter, that I like the most is definitely the best on best hockey. Having said that, I think the Summer Olympics as a whole are better than the Winter Olympics. That's always been my take.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I get more into. I mean, it just depends. I mean, because to me, gymnastics and figure skating are similar. I get into both. Both obviously are sports that are judged, right? So there's like a lot of room for being angry, or the home country gets the benefit and stuff like that. But I think with the Summer Olympics, you just have like the swimming and the running. There's not. I mean, I guess speed skating would be your parallel, right?
The sprint kind of thing. Yeah.
What's that?
Like the sprint. Yeah, just fast.
Yeah, speed skating.
Yeah. Exactly. Just pure athletic. And it's just, I just think that the summer, I don't know, like swimming to me is like, that's a big differentiator.
I get into the luge and I count how many different times on the course I would die. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's would have been over there. Would have been over there. Oh, good.
Yeah. That stuff's wild, but in some of these events, it's just like, how did we ever get to having this event? And like, how, like, there are people who just spend their entire lives trying to be good. Was it SNL? SNL had a actually a really good skit a couple weeks ago about someone who was like a loser just because she, like the shape of her body, but she hated doing it. So her coach had to like trick her into going on the course all the time, But she was like incredible loser who just hated doing it. It's like, I don't want to do the luge. But it's like some of these events, it really is amazing.
Well, somebody had to invent these sports too. It's like we're gonna make this course just completely frozen, and you're gonna reach speeds of like 80 miles an hour coming down the hill. But just make sure you got a nice helmet on, and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Like the first people who started trying this, like what were they thinking?
It's a good question.
What kind of state of mind were they in?
Let's just go ahead and all pull together. We need a nice Team USA Olympic men's hockey gold over Canada. It would do our souls some good.
That would. Keegan does say that we knocked the reigning gold medalist Italy out of the curling mixed couple bracket and in the gold medal match now. So there you go. Mixed curling. 11 a.m. All right. See? I will check it out now.
That's going to do it for us today here on the program. We will be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Paul Kuharski will be with us on the program tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Next Man Up with Jake Lyman is next. You're listening to 102.5 The Game.